Hi, everyone. It's Naven. Welcome to Soul Creativity. So glad you're joining us wherever are at in the world today. We're pleased to have you, whether you're watching live or you catch the show later. The comment section is up, so feel free to post a comment or ask a question. And if you happen to catch the show at a later time, please feel free to comment. I will make sure that our guest sees those comments. So I'm really excited for today's show. Our guest this evening is Michael Mammina, and Michael is a life coach, and he is just full of wisdom. And one of his specialties is reinvention coaching, which I'm really super excited to talk about today, Michael, because I feel like the times are really calling us to reinvent ourselves, even if we think we already have. And we've addressed a lot of this before. It's such a changing time period. And I feel like things are really intense that we're being called to reinvent ourselves in some way to respond, either personally or on a bigger scale collectively. So, super excited that you're going to be here to help us through that. So, welcome and thank you for joining us today, Michael.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate this opportunity, and I'm very excited to talk with you.
Great.
So, yeah, go ahead.
Well, okay, so I think we all know what life coaching basically is, and everyone might approach it a little bit differently. But I know that you have specialty areas. And so when we were talking before, we were talking about reinvention coaching.
Mhm.
And I think that's the first time I heard it worded that way. So I really hope that you can explain to us something more about what you mean by that. And we'll take it from there because I'm sure we'll have questions or comments as you explain.
Okay, sure. I'd be happy to. So, yes, you're right. I coach in several different modalities, but the one I'm currently focusing on most right now is reinvention coaching. And the reason that I'm doing that is specifically what you said. You know, the world is sort of coming out of this period of transition with the epidemic, and so many people, or the pandemic, I should say, so many people are just saying, I'm not sure I want my life to look like it used to look like. You know, there are aspects of life that during the pandemic we reevaluated, we took time to look at, and people are sort of saying, I'm not sure I want status quo. And what does that mean? So, what a reinvention coach actually does, and what reinvention coaching is, it's an opportunity to really rediscover your dreams and to live the best version of yourself. And oftentimes people are like, well, what does that mean? You know, if you're struggling to get to that life that you know that you really want, or if you have a vision for your life that you've been putting off for years, reinvention coaching is a way to lay out a roadmap, a stepping stone path to get you to where you want to be. Life coaching, essentially, as you said, is about getting you from where you are now to where you want to be. And reinvention coaching helps you create a roadmap to actually get you there. And on that path, we discover obstacles or things that potentially are in your way that you didn't even know were there. You know, things to clear that path, things that you may have established all the way back from childhood or at some point in your life that actually hold you back. So it's an opportunity to look at what your heart most desires and then to creatively look at how you're going to get there and how you're going to reinvent yourself and what your life could potentially look at. Is that helpful?
That's very helpful. And as you were talking, Michael, I thought about something. Um, we're talking about reinventing our lives so that we can live our dream in the best version of ourselves. And especially coming out of the pandemic, like you said, a lot of people were reevaluating. When you're part of the status quo or rat race or whatever you want to call it.
Yes.
Sometimes you just don't have the time to think that through. And so that was one of the little gems, if you want to call it that, from the pandemic, is that a lot of us, not everyone, but a lot of people had time to explore.
Correct.
But a lot of people don't, if they haven't been in doing any transformative work, and say the pandemic was the first opportunity they had to really notice that the life they had wasn't what they wanted, how can they even start knowing, like, you want to get on the path to where you want to be, but how do you know where you want to be? Or do you have to actually know exactly where you want to be before you start?
It's a great question. I like to say that everyone actually has a vision for their life.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone always had a vision for their life. And all we're going to be doing is basically dusting it off and uncovering it. And oftentimes before pandemic, and even just in other situations in our lives, we sort of cover up what our dreams and desires and visions are to fit ourselves into the world or fit ourselves into the life that we think we should have. But that vision is always there. It's almost like your soul talk. Your soul knows ultimately what its greatest desire is. And if we stop and we take the time to listen, that's when we can uncover and reveal and dust off basically what is the vision and what does it look like. So actually in Reinvention Coaching, you're taken through like what I sort of call the life wheel, or pieces of a pie, where there's all these different pieces of your life that we review, and we look at what ultimately would you like this to be. So then there's a culmination of, what does my health look like? What does my job look like? What do my relationships look like? So that we're doing an exploration. And during that exploration, what comes out of it is you're gleaning this stuff where you're going, wow, I didn't even realize that this is really what I want in my life. This is really where I want to go. But it's actually there all the time. It's just a matter of focusing. And so much of life coaching also, or the work that I do, is about going inside and finding those answers from within, because that's really where I believe the truth lies. And I believe if we're willing to look inside, everything that we need is within us. It's just a matter of training ourselves, almost like a muscle, to say, okay, I don't need to look outside or externally for the answers. If I can just look within and see, what is it that my heart really desires? And especially as a result of X, Y, or Z, then we say, okay, so how are we going to get there? So what life coaching also is about, it's about mobilizing people and putting people into action, because without action, you could talk at your talk and say, sure, I'd love to do this and I'd love to do that. And if we don't move into action, then we never really get anywhere. So part of what we do is, and what I mean step by step, is we take actions, we mobilize, we move into action so that we can continue to excavate, uncover, discover, and also change the path if necessary to make sure that we're getting where we want to go. So that's really, that vision is there. It's just a matter of allowing ourselves to see it and being sort of guided for those that are not necessarily, comfortable or don't really know how to do that. Some people have never meditated, or they've never really thought about inner work. The coach is there. I'm there to help guide you to your answers, because the answers are within you. I'm just there to hold the space and to create a container for you to discover what's already there.
Yeah, I really like that idea of going within it. It kind of brings up other questions, or talking about being in the status quo, and maybe it's the first time that you're starting to think about you have inner resources. It can be hard to break that pattern, because we're trained from such a young age to get that validation and to take our cues from the outside of ourselves. we're not really taught that we have any kind of power or say so. And we, I think you and I were talking before from the time we're young, how we judge ourselves by the
Correct.
feedback and comments that we're getting from the outside world. So going within seems like a very empowering, once you get used to doing it, and then you have to learn to trust that.
Yes. Yes.
And that's a little tricky, I think, because you're still interacting with the regular world that's giving you the other feedback.
Yes, exactly. And it is learning to really trust that the answers are within you.
Mhm.
We do look, you're right, exactly what you said. We are trained from childhood to fit into the box, to compartmentalize ourselves, and to figure out how to move forward. One of my mentors, Debbie Ford, used to say, we're all born as a castle with hundreds of rooms. And sometimes by the time we're an adult, we're like a 2-bedroom apartment because we've just compartmentalized ourselves and put ourselves into what we believe is acceptable to other people.
Mhm.
And we do that because that's how we believe we can gain the love or the acceptance or be okay or manage life or navigate life. And we do that as a survival technique. That's sort of the role of the ego. And in coaching, I never make the ego wrong. I invite the ego in because it is a place of information. Just like emotion, I bring emotion into everything. Emotion is one of our greatest telltales for ourselves on what we need to do or see or feel. And so emotion, ego, all things that we were told as children, stay away from those things. You don't need those things. Just be a good boy or be a good girl or, be the perfect son or be the perfect daughter, whatever the case may be. And then it goes all the way to be the perfect partner, be the perfect wife, husband, employee, on and on and on.
Right.
And we continue to compartmentalize ourselves to fit into the world. And I'm not saying that that's necessarily wrong. But when there is aspects of ourselves that are yearning to come out and to fully express and to allow you to fully be who you want to be, then you've got to let those things out. Because again, the truth of who we are, we want people to acknowledge ourselves for the truth of who we are. But we, as another one of my mentors, Nancy Levin, says, we want to be accepted for the truth of who we are. But oftentimes we won't let people see the truth of who we are because we're fearful of what will happen. So what I love is, Neil Donald Walsh, the great author, says, if you don't go within, you go without.
Right.
So taking those inner journeys step by step, even if it's for a minute, and I could tell you the value of that for my own life. I used to be living in such deep fear. I couldn't see 2 inches in front of my face because I just had fear. And I realized doing a lot of deep work and learning that the answers are within me, that the more I turned everything inward, the more I was able to feel comfortable, the more I was able to have faith in myself, the less I looked for those external gold stars, and I was able to step into my power. And that then led me to be much more authentic, living my life authentically. And it gave me the energy, the fuel, the willpower to really go and develop the life that I really wanted. So the answers are within if we're ready to take that step inward. I love the analogy that the gold is actually in the dark. So if we're willing to go in, or if you're going to go deeply into a cave, that's where you're going to find the gold. You just have to be comfortable going in and trying to find it.
Right. And I was thinking, I'd mentioned before, going within is empowering. And it made me think when you were saying, you can't necessarily, you still have to maneuver through the regular world, but the more that you build that, power from within and that center point where you feel grounded and in your own truth and authenticity, then you can maneuver the regular world. It's less likely to throw you, knock you to the ground. If if you have an understanding of how that operates, and then how your strength comes from within, I think you can, you know, stay grounded a little better and stay stronger while you're maneuvering the world, because most of us can't go live in a cave. I mean, we still have to interact, maybe have jobs, families, all those things that you're interacting with that may have, caused you the issues to begin with. You start to have a different perspective, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. And so when you go within, I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit about, being in alignment with yourself and other people, and how your relationships change, your relationship with yourself and with other people once you start interacting from your center.
Sure. Yeah. Um, part of being human at this point is also we do receive information, right? So the information comes from outside, and we are meaning making machines, basically. So depending on what's coming at us, we will receive it and we will make it mean something about us. And on the flip side of that, the more healthy we are in standing in the truth of who we are and knowing our truth, the less, or the more, I should say, we could deflect what we may have in the past perceived as something challenging or something, down-putting about ourselves. Mm-hmm. So let me explain a little bit more about what that means. And again, this was a philosophy that was coined by Carl Jung years ago, which is talking about shadows. And then again, one of my mentors, Debbie Ford, took that idea and coined the phrase shadow beliefs. And because we are meaning-making machines, I love to say that, meaning-making machines, what we do is, from a very young age, to help us fit in and figure out how to navigate when people say things to us or we experience something in our lives, we naturally make it mean something about us, because as children, we don't know how to discern what's really going on. So I'll give you for instance. For me, I used to be bullied a lot in school. So I made that mean that there was something wrong with me. Now, in reality, there was a lot of wrong with what was happening with people, bullying people and all of that kind of thing, but I internalized it. So I made it mean something about me. And I also made it mean was that the world was scary. Mm-hmm. So that's the shadow belief. The belief then I took inside. And then what happened was, what we do naturally is I've created this armor of the world is scary. And if I don't be careful, I'm going to get hurt. And we carry it through our life. And we don't even realize that we have internalized it so deeply that it's sort of an unconscious commitment that we've made to ourselves to always live in fear. So I lived in fear for so long that every decision I made was based from that fear. And there was a huge cost in that, because I never really got to experience life the way I really wanted to. I held myself back. I had a very bad weight problem. I was eating my emotions. And that's how I navigated my life. But when I discovered this work and I saw that these shadow beliefs were like the game changer for me, when I realized that these were just beliefs that as a child, I thought I needed to internalize to navigate through life. But here's the key. As an adult, it no longer serves you. And as an adult, you can discern that, hey, that happened to that kid because he got bullied in the playground. But now the adult certainly knows how to take care of himself. That's when you learn to step into the power and step into your power. And then your relationships change, because when those things are happening to you, or if you even meet an adult bully, because there are lots of them out there, suddenly you go, that's just that old shadow belief. And then you learn to say, okay, so now the adult knows I don't have to take that in. So it doesn't knock me back. It doesn't put me off. I can recognize it and I could move forward from there. And the thing about shadow beliefs, and I'm hoping this is making sense to you and those that are watching, is that shadow beliefs never go away because they're just part of who you are. What we learn is to manage them. And we get to the point where I like to say, does the shadow belief manage you or do you manage it? And even when I look at addictive behavior, is the food still managing me or am I managing it? Is the fear managing me or am I managing it? And when you come from that place where you're actually in the management, if you will, of those things, and you can recognize where some of them just could be triggering some of these shadow beliefs, you quickly can go, that's just a shadow belief. That's just fear. Okay, I'm gonna change that around. I'm gonna acknowledge that that is something that used to knock me off kilter. And now it no longer does. So what then it does for you is it enables you to have those relationships that are healthier. You asked, how does that relate to relationships? It enables you to step into your power. And what happens is that we also attract mirrors into our lives that will help us reflect to ourselves what we most need to learn. So the more I can stand in my power and the more healthy I can feel and the more empowered I can be, those are the people I'm going to attract into my life. And you will notice that those that don't align or can't align with you being truly in your power and being who you are will somehow fall off. And you'll find that your relationships become much more authentic, much more comfortable, much more enjoyable. And I'm not saying it's always perfect, but then have the tool to say, what am I attracting? What is the mirror that I need to hold up on to myself? Does that make sense?
That does make sense. And it's empowering to, in a way, I mean, we might have been, led to believe that we should never have a negative feeling or we can get rid of all the shadows. We have to keep working at them and get rid of them. And that makes me feel like we're spinning our wheels, which ends up making us feel worse about ourselves because we're wondering what's wrong with me that I can't, that I still have that shadow. And so I like that. I find it empowering. And I like your idea of, navigating that part of yourself and how you can be in control. It doesn't have to control you, but it's not necessarily going to go away. And how we can come to recognize, who's in control at with that particular event or incident. Is it the shadow? And I'm sure after you work with that for a while, it gets pretty easy to recognize and you can deal with it quicker.
Correct. Yeah, because it becomes a benchmark or it becomes a gauge where when you're triggered, which we all get triggered by things, we sort of say, okay, so what's triggering me? What am I making this mean about me? Someone says something to you or you experience an event that feels uncomfortable and you're triggered. You can stop, you put a pause in and say, so what am I making this mean about me? So, okay, I'm making this mean I'm stupid. Well, when else might I have felt that I was stupid? Well, it could have been that your elementary school teacher might have said, well, that was stupid. Why did you do that? And at that point in time, you created a belief, an unconscious belief that you're stupid. So then anytime something happened, you just continued to say, yeah, I'm stupid. Well, there I am. Look how stupid I am. That was stupid. So until you can uncover it and you can change that, that new belief, we always say, where's an empowering belief? That there's a gift in actually those shadows, because they're teaching you how to sort of combat them, change them, own them, because again, we don't like to make them wrong, and then take control of them versus them controlling you.
And that reminded me of something I think you and I were talking about before, how, if you're in a particular situation and someone makes a negative comment to you, either, it could be about the way you look or your quality of work, and another person makes a positive comment, it's the negative one we dwell on and carry with us instead of, focusing on the positive.
Yes.
And I think we were talking that is a kind of an ego thing and how we protect ourselves. We start out by believing the negative or taking it in. It really is a way to kind of protect ourselves, and it might go back to that fitting in or wanting approval. And so I can see where the work can help us discern between the what we're feeling and what it really coming, to terms with looking at that comment. And
Yes.
I'm wondering if you have something to say about why we hold on to the negative.
Well, scientifically, it's actually been proven that we look for the negative before we actually look for the positive in life. It's been proven scientifically. And part of that is, as you just said, that ego, that protective mechanism, that unspiritualized part of ourselves that often comes from that place of fear versus coming from a place of love. So we'll look for things that could potentially be wrong. If you're the kind of person that walks in a room full of people and looks for, what's going to happen that might not be okay, like notice that behavior, or the person who steps into a room full of people and says, wow, look at this opportunity that I have to, to explore and to learn and to meet new people. Mm-hmm. Oftentimes, we know there is this bias to go toward the negative. So when people do make comments to us, oftentimes, and I think you're talking about another thing that we call disowned qualities, where there's a quality that's positive or negative that we don't want to own within ourselves. So, and again, to be whole, we need to know that we are everything. We're like a holograph. We're every part of the universe. We are everything. So as much as we are mean is as much as we are kind. So what is a fun thing to do when you're really looking for, am I coming from a place of fear? Am I coming from a place of love? Is to look at qualities that we project onto other people. And in the coaching program, what I do is there are 2 separate weeks. One is looking at what are the negative or perceived negative qualities, because we don't make any quality wrong. And what are the light qualities? So sometimes it's more difficult for you to say, I'm mean, or I'm a narcissist, because you don't want to own that part of yourself. I always say, what is the thing you would never want to see, on the cover of the New York Times? Michael is stupid, or whatever it is. And then I know if I have a reaction to that, that's a quality that I need to sort of take back and I need to own for myself. So when someone says something like, wow, that was stupid, I instantly turn it into a negative thing. If I can own the quality and just say, oh, that's just a word that I'm putting meaning around, again, those meaning-making machines, then I can learn to neutralize the reaction, if that makes sense. So for me, lazy was a word that I just could not own. And if someone called me lazy, I thought, oh, that was terrible, But I also realized that with everything, there's a gift. Like when I meant in the gold, there's also a gift in any negative quality, because when you're lazy, you ask yourself, so what do you get out of being lazy? Well, I get to relax. I get to do nothing. I get to sit and watch a movie. So now I own my lazy, and I actually build in lazy time so that I can own it. And now I'm not triggered by it anymore. Same thing on the light side. if someone says, you are the most beautiful person on the planet, and I can't just go, thank you, I know. A light quality is something that you also don't necessarily always want to own. So it's often easier to take those negative qualities and say, yeah, that's me, I'm stupid, versus, wow, you're so beautiful, and really own it. So I think that's part of the negative and the positive quality thing. But what's beautiful is that you can play a game with yourself. You can actually go through the grocery store, walk around, watch people, and notice qualities that you project onto those people. And then notice if you have a reaction, because if you have a reaction to someone's behavior versus just an observation, then that's probably a quality that you don't want to own yet in yourself. Does that make sense?
That makes sense. And I was also thinking about, all of the qualities, we have all of them. And if we're not so tied to making them wrong, we do stupid things sometimes. And so we could just laugh about it. Or like you were saying, you do feel lazy sometimes. Maybe you have a lot to do, but you just don't want to do it. You want to lay down and read a book or something. If we're not so tied to having this tunnel vision of the way things have to be, you can realize like there might be a day you don't look as good as another day, or there might be a day where you don't have the energy that you have another day. And so you can allow for all of that without being so strict in judging yourself about those different qualities, and realize that we really have them all, and they're, interacting with us at different times.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, the more we can become conscious of the meaning-making machine, the more we will be able to navigate life better. It's like, and because it's all about feeling. It's all about emotion. It's all about how do I want to feel? It's so interesting. If someone just said to you every day, you're so beautiful, that could be a really wonderful feeling. But sometimes it's really hard for you to actually accept that versus someone saying, God, you're such a jerk. Right. Oftentimes it's so easy for us to just say, I'll take the jerk because yeah, you're right, I'm a jerk. Versus wouldn't you rather have the feeling of, God, you're so beautiful, and it makes you feel better. So the more we can put ourselves in these places of looking at and owning and not making things mean things because they're just words, the more we can look at what we wrap around these things, the more we will be able to navigate life, the more we want it to be, the more we can feel happier, the more we can feel inspired, the more we can feel, again, that fueling to create the life that we really want and reinvent yourself to the point that you really want to. So you're living this life of happiness. I always say, I think it's in my bio. It's like, don't just live your life, live the life of your dreams. And if you're not doing that, let's figure out why, because there's reasons. And again, we don't make them wrong. We just want to discover them so that we can get to that life of your dreams.
Well, that's really well said. And that was a lot of information in our half hour of time.
Yes.
Michael, will you let people know I do have your website address under the video, but you can, remind people how to get in touch with you, because you can go further with anyone that really wants to work on the reinvention coaching or shadow work or whatever they want to do.
Yes, exactly. Well, within reinvention, we certainly talk about shadow. So yes. So thank you so much for today. I really appreciate it. It's been really a blast. And you can reach me at my website, which is michaelmammina.com. So it's just my name.com. Also, you can find me on social media. Instagram is just Michael Mammina. Same thing on Facebook as well. So when you if you go to my Instagram, you'll see all the different ways you can reach me, but the easiest way is through the website for sure. So,
which is a great website, by the way, has a lot of inspiring information just looking through the website. I want to remind everyone, if you want to leave a comment, just remember I'll be checking that, and I will get back to you. Michael will get back to you. So don't think that you had to just respond during the live show. We will keep in touch, and I would recommend everyone checking out Michael's website and see what he has to offer, because it's really juicy and full of inspiration and good energy. So thank you so much for joining us today, Michael. We really appreciate it and hope that you will come back at some time.
I would love to. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Bye, everyone. Have a good day.